My name is Joe Passano. I'm the president of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame, and I'd like to welcome you to this induction. This is our 31st annual induction, as I'll repeat maybe once or twice. At the end of this ceremony, we'll have 86 inductees, and some of us have come to almost all of the inductions, so it's our honor to bring in 3 more celebrated conservationists into this great Hall of Fame. We have a great program in store today, and I think you'll find the speakers and the other events that we have worth your time, especially as it's so nice out. So I want to especially recognize that there's a lot of competing events today. Some of us would rather be fishing or perhaps even sailing or at least raking the lawn. But this is a great way to spend, I think, a beautiful morning. You still have the afternoon to do those other things. So thank you for spending the time with us today. In particular, I want to especially invite our inductees in the audience, and you will have a chance to hear them later. We have Ron Koshasek and Eugene Rourke. David Ladd, unfortunately, will not be with us. We got word just a day or two ago that his health is troublesome and he will not be joining us today. But we hope to have another induction ceremony for him in Dodgeville in a couple of weeks. So a few of us will try to get to that. So it's unfortunate. This will be the first time ever that we might have had all 3 inductees here. And I got that claim in our news releases, but it didn't happen. We have a full program, but I want to take a few minutes at the beginning to introduce the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame to those of you that aren't familiar with it, and also to recognize our Board of Directors and Board of Governors, and then to thank some people who have helped make this event in the Hall of Fame a success. I also want to highlight that last year we had our 30th anniversary celebration, and we tried something new, as is indicated in our newsletter that's, I think, in your program as well. We realized that a lot of people would like to come to our induction ceremony, but they have other obligations and conflicts. So last year we started to videotape the whole program, primarily so that we have a historical record of the comments that are made and other things. But we also found this is a great way to share with people who are not here. So last year we posted it on YouTube, and Erica is videotaping today's presentations, and we hope to have those also posted on YouTube in about a week or 2. So if you want to review that, it's very simple to get there. You just type into your search engine, Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame, WCHF, induction 2015, I assume it will be, and right away it'll come up. Typically, last year we posted it in 5 different segments. I think we'll do that today. So if you want to go immediately to, for example, the induction of Gene Rourke, you can skip past some of the other things and go directly to him. Okay? So tell your friends that if they could not come, they can still see the presentation. Okay, I want to take a few minutes to recognize some special guests and some of the people who have helped make this event happen. Again, I want to thank the inductees and their families and their friends for coming. We also have our distinguished representatives, the representative and our senator from our area here, and they will help present the legislative citations. So I'd like to introduce very quickly Katrina Shankland and Julie Lassa. They will come up to the stage a little bit later. I'd also like to thank people who have, before I forget, we have 2 and perhaps more distinguished inductees from last year here. So if you came to the event last year, you had a chance to meet Bill Horvath and Clifford Germain. we're most happy that both of them have returned. Could I get Bill and Cliff to just stand up if they're able, and everybody say Anybody else see any past inductees come? For example, is John Muir or Aldo Leopold here? So it's indeed an honor to have the two of you with us. Then some thanks to some people that have helped. Smeekler Reserve is the site of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. And I encourage you to go over to Smeekler Reserve and see the Hall of Fame and the Visitor Center after the luncheon or immediately after this ceremony if you're not planning to go to the luncheon. But I'd like to recognize very quickly Ron Zimmerman, director he's up here in the front also taking some pictures. Let me mention pictures quickly. We'd like to get some pictures to put in some news articles next week. And in particular, I'd like to get the inductees and maybe your delegation of speakers to gather right afterwards, and Ron can perhaps take a picture of you in front of the plaque. So we'll get Gene and the two speakers you have, and Ron will get you and the three speakers you have together. So before you disappear, let's get some pictures. So I recognize Ron Zimmerman. Jim Bokoltz isn't with us today. He's out traveling, but he's helped a lot. And Megan Espy isn't here today, but she helped a lot. We have Carly helping with the visuals and Erica with the filming. Thank you much. We also have an executive board that has helped with many of the things that had to get accomplished before this. So Earl Spangerberg is our executive secretary. He's at a memorial service today, I believe, and he could not come, but I want to recognize all of his help over the years. Brenda Lackey is our treasurer and has helped with the registration and other things. And Donna Van Buchen has helped with the newsletters and many other things. So I want to recognize those people. Lastly, two members of my family. I want to recognize my wife, raise your hand, Lynn, who's helped me for the last couple of months trying to pull all of these things together. And my daughter, we'll see her work in a few minutes. She's an artist at the Berkshire Mahler Museum of Glass, and she did the artistic sketches for the plaques today. So she could not come, but I want to recognize their help. Okay, a couple introductory comments about the Hall of Fame before we get to the formal induction procedures. The Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame is a member organization established in 1985 to encourage the growth and practice of conservation in Wisconsin and the nation. The Hall of Fame, through its induction activity, recognizes individuals who have contributed significantly to conservation programs, projects, and public understanding in the state and the nation. So that's basically our mission. We have an education component. Of course, this is part of our education component. And we have membership services for those of our affiliate members as well as our member organizations. We are a unique organization. Last time I looked, we are indeed the only Wisconsin conservation, we are the only conservation hall of fame in the nation. And of course, we recognize primarily people who have done great things in Wisconsin, but many of them have also made great marks nationally. As I mentioned before, this is our 31st induction. Starting in 1985, we inducted John Muir and Aldo Leopold, two of our favorite sons of Wisconsin. And by the end of today's ceremony, we will have inducted 86 men and women who from all walks of life and profession have contributed greatly to the conservation ideal. If you want to learn more about the past inductees, I encourage you to go to our website. There is a monograph for all, there will be a monograph for all 86 on our website, and you can read about them. You can also go to the Conservation Hall of Fame at Smeekler Reserve, and there's monographs there, as well as plaques on our what we call the gallery. And it's a nice sunlit room and a pleasant place to visit, especially today, so go over there, please. Just a brief comment about our nomination and selection process. How do people end up being inducted on a day like today? Well, we solicit nominations from our member organizations and from individuals. I don't think I want to be there yet. Probably.
Your nominations?
Okay, if you're there, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so there is a note here about the nomination process, but I thought I would mention it right now. So member organizations, of which we have 21, and their representatives can nominate anyone they feel deserves to be recognized in the Hall of Fame. Individuals from the public are also welcome to submit nominations. Simply a letter will get things started, but we encourage people to write a full biography of their accomplishments and to, in a sense, justify why these individuals are deserving of this credit. In the brochure, you look into the brochure in one of those leaflets at the bottom, it indicates our nominations process. You can also find some of that information on our website. One more note about the Hall of Fame and its location and its elements. As I mentioned, the Hall of Fame physical building is within the Visitor Center at Smeakley Reserve. Smeakley Reserve has a nice gift shop and a reception area. And then there's another area that we helped build in a sense. And it includes the gallery of plaques that I mentioned. It also includes a interpretive visitor museum, for lack of a better word, that's really tells the story of conservation in Wisconsin, starting with the big forest and then the logging era, and then through some of the wildlife challenges and some of the great events that have moved forward the conservation legacy. So when you go over there, take a little while to go through the visitor center. We also have a meeting room there, which is used by over 100 conservation organizations and civic organizations throughout the year. And it's free of charge. All you need to do is to call in and make a reservation. So if you represent a conservation organization and you'd like to get your group up here for a meeting, central in the state, so that classroom and meeting room has been very popular. Reminded that each year we have thousands, perhaps tens of thousands of people come to Smeakley Reserve. It's also a community nature center and a part of the University of Wisconsin. So lots of students use it. Perfect afternoon to take a little walk through some of our trails. Lastly, I'd like to recognize that last night, if you were in town, you might have seen 300 cars parked in front of Smeakley Reserve. And I want to thank again our Smeakley staff for all the great work they're doing today, because I know they spent a long day yesterday and last night probably cleaning things up for today's events. I stopped by just briefly yesterday, but have gone to the event in the past with the interpretive programs, a campfire, and a candlelight walk. They do that, I think, twice each year in the fall and the spring. Before I forget, I'd like to invite you to become members, affiliate members of the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. In the packet you picked up, there's a membership brochure. If you're willing and able to contribute to our cause, it's greatly appreciated. We have a very thin budget and have a hard time making ends meet, so any help is greatly appreciated. Likewise, Smeakley Reserve had created last year a Friends of Smeakley Reserve, and in a sense they indirectly help with the Conservation Hall of Fame. And we have Bill Berry here, I think, who is the president of that organization. Bill, could you just raise your hand? I'll learn more about that. Bill's in the back. He's also on the Board of Governors. Okay, last thing before we get to the presentations. Last year we spent a little time formally recognizing our member organizations, the 21, and their representatives who serve on the Board of Directors, and have them come to the stage. Today I at least want to recognize those individuals who came to our presentation today, and I'll just ask them when I call to stand in the audience and wave their hand, and you can look around and see who, some of the people who help us guide the Hall of Fame. So as I mentioned earlier, we're a cooperative venture of 21 state organizations, and I'm not going to take time to read all of them, but you'll see that list at the back of your program. At the very back are 21 member organizations, most of them charter organizations started 30 years ago. We have a board of directors, and that consists of one representative from each of our 21 member organizations. In addition to guiding the organization and making policy decisions, they also help basically select the new inductees each year. We have a list of nominations. That list of nominations is then reviewed each year, and eventually it comes up to the point where we select typically 2 or 3 inductees each year from a longer slate of nominees. We also have a board of governors, and they help keep us honest. They are an independent board, and they consist of 5 individuals who really understand the history of conservation in the state and the nation very well. And they help make recommendations for those that we think are worthy of this honor. So I'd like to quickly recognize those people on our boards. The 21 member organizations I indicated are listed on the back of the program. Our board of directors, I guess let's go back to, thank you. So this is our full list, but I'm just going to ask those people who are here to stand. Already standing, I'm Joe Bassino, I'm the president. I've been a member of the board for 28 years. And I represent the Wisconsin Association for Environmental Education. We also have here Jan Harms, who is our vice president, and he represents the Wisconsin Society of American Forests. Jan, could you just stand up and wave your hand? And if you want, you could stay standing. Brenda Lackey is our treasurer, and you met her at the registration desk. She's in the far back. She represents the College of Natural Resources at UW-Stevens Point. This is a little bit of double dipping, but I'm going to do it, Gene. Gene Rourke, who many of you know and who will honor more directly in a few minutes, has been on our board for 30 years, and he is our past president, so he serves on our executive committee. So thank you, Gene. Earl Spangenberg indicated is our, and Gene represents the Dane County Conservation League. Earl Spangenberg is not with us today, but he represents the Wisconsin American Water Resources Association. We do have Donna Buchan here. Mentioned her earlier. She's also on the executive committee and represents the Wild Ones Natural Landscapers and is the executive director of that organization located in Neenah. I'm going to come back to that. Let's skip over a few other people who are not here today. Jerry Ernst, I believe, is here. Can I get Jerry to stand? He's here. So Jerry Ernst represents the Isaac Walton League. Thank you, Jerry, for coming. Mike Vollmer was planning to come. Did he come? If so, please stand. I'm jumping over what I will quickly make a note. Peter Oberhauser served on our board of directors for many years and unfortunately passed away this past year. And that position is currently open, but that will be filled soon. But I want to publicly recognize all of the work that Peter has done. Good work, but an incredible gentleman. For those of you that know that's the case. Tom Rudolph is here with the Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association. Tom, thank you for your help. And James Rivers said that he was coming with a guest. Did James ever get here? Oh, thank you, James, for coming. I know that you've also had some health issues, so thank you much for coming. and he represents the Wisconsin Woodland Owners Association, and we'll actually have the executive director of that organization make part of the presentations today. Going to move down to the board of directors. We have, I think, 4 of the 5 directors here. George Meyer is the executive director of the Wisconsin Wildlife Federation and former secretary of the Department of Natural Resources. Thank you, George, for all your help on the Board of Governors. We also have Ellen Haney here. Ellen Haney is the former dean of the College of Natural Resources, and spent some of his time working on a farm and watching birds, and just finished a great book about birds that he has gotten to know over his many years. So I want to make another plug about that book. Ellen, I encourage people to look for a beautiful book that he just produced. We also have Bill Berry, way in the back. Bill Berry has been a biographer with us for many years. Has joined the Board of Governors this last year. He's also an author and just published a book dealing with the history of deed conservation and DDT in Wisconsin. Probably making book tours at this point. So thank you, Bill. Tim Isley is also on board, but he decided to go fishing today with the governor. So he couldn't get out of that task. He's been there for, I think, 27 years and says, I have to keep my reputation. So that's our Board of Governors. Okay, with that, a round of applause for our Board of Governors. Okay, there was one other recognition I wanted to make. I had hoped that Milo Harpstead would be here, but I think he told me recently he needed to go to a wedding. And the reason I wanted to pick him out is that he, a few months ago, said he wanted to retire after a mere 30 years on the board of directors. And so I made a certificate for him, a certificate of appreciation. And though he isn't here, maybe he'll look at the YouTube, so I'll read his citation, okay? Certificate of appreciation presented to Milo Harpstead for 30 years of exceptional service as a valued member of the Board of Directors and on the Executive Committee for the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame. So thank you, Milo, for all of your work, and hope you enjoy your retirement. We'll get that certificate to him later. Okay, now it's time for the formal recognition of our new inductees. Today we'll induct 3 outstanding leaders in conservation. As I noted in my press releases and also noted in the newsletter, I'm going to occasionally refer to this packet that you picked up. This year, instead of putting the newsletter and other things on the table, my wife helped stuff them all together into your program, so if you don't have time to look at them before, take them home and you can read them more carefully at that time. But I indicated that as I looked at the slate of inductees this year, there was something that they all held in common. While most of them are exceptional professional conservationists in one way or another, all 3 of them have excelled as what I would call the citizen conservationist. Those individuals that go beyond their professional work to advance the conservation idea and ideal in their civic and community life. I think that will come clear as we have some of our speakers talk about each of the inductees. Just with a thumbnail sketch of the 3, Ron Koshchak is an emeritus professor of the UW-Eau Claire faculty and has taught philosophy, ethics, and jurisprudence, but his efforts reach far beyond the classroom. And he advanced major environmental laws both here in Wisconsin and in the nation through his work on the Citizen Advisory Board as well as with the Public Intervener's Office. And we have some speakers to testify to that. Gene Rourke is the only one that I've known for 25 years, so it's a pleasure to know Gene. but he's dedicated much of his life to protecting Wisconsin's natural resources by leading and contributing to numerous conservation organizations as well as state agencies. He's also has been a very, sometimes quiet, but also very effective and advocate for public policy by meeting with the legislature and with agencies. And as we'll hear a little bit later, has helped to ecologically restore two or three parcels of family land over the last 50 years. David Ladd indicated won't be with us today, but his accomplishments are no less. As an avid outdoorsman and a conservationist, he has worked with lots of conservation organizations and helped, indeed, I think, create one of the Trout Unlimited groups in the Southwest, and a great lover of trees. Dave founded the Dodgeville company Walnut Hollow, a forest product business which by itself is worthy of recognition at this Hall of Fame. A business organization that promoted environmentally sustainable forest practices as well as industry practices to avoid the pollution that sometimes seems to be the result of some industry that is not more conscious and thoughtful. Okay, that's our cast of characters for today. The procedure that we will use, we'll spend approximately a half hour on each of the inductees with 2 or 3 colleagues and friends talking about them. We'll also read the legislative citation that was put together by Julie Lassa and Katrina Shankland. We'll unveil the plaques as we induct each of these individuals, and we ask the inductees to speak after their plaques have been unveiled. Typically we have the citations at the end of each of the segments, but I know that our legislators are very busy today and want to get off to other events, so I've changed the program today. We will start with, instead of a review of their accomplishments, we'll use it as a preview of their accomplishments. So I'd like to invite up to the stage Julie Lassa, Senator Julie Lassa, and Representative Katrina Shankland, and they will take the time out to read the citations. I assume everything is fine. Is the mic correct volume? Are things working out today?
Yes.
Okay. So, Julie, thank you very much for coming. I did mention that for 30 years, I believe, they have created these citations. And it's a great testament to the work that you've done for us and the great work that you've done for our state. So thank you very much. So, take over.
It is indeed a pleasure to join all of you today as we celebrate the accomplishments of these 3 gentlemen who have spent their lifetime passing on the ideals and beliefs and just cherishing Wisconsin's natural resources to the next generation. And I think that today's celebration is very much needed, especially during these times when we know that there are some challenges both at the state and national level when it comes to preserving and carefully managing our natural resources. So this citation says, whereas every year the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inducts a select group of individuals into the Hall of Fame to recognize the important contributions each has made to the resource management in the state. And whereas Professor Randall Koshashek has been chosen as a 2015 Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inductee for his lifelong commitment to our state's natural resources. And whereas Ronald has had a long and fruitful teaching career at Regis High School in Eau Claire, Dartmouth College, and eventually serving as professor of philosophy, ethics, and jurisprudence at the University of Eau Claire until 1999, when he retired as Professor Emeritus. And whereas Ronald founded the Ojibwe chapter of Trout Unlimited in 1972, where he worked as president to combat the decline of trout stream environments through various habitat restoration projects, and served from 1976 to 1979 as one of 2 Wisconsin representatives on the National Board of Trout Unlimited. And whereas Ronald continued to be active in conserving Wisconsin's streams by petitioning in numerous cases to protect water quality and curb erosion and pollution by development projects, and was named Wisconsin Wildlife Federation's Conservationist of the Year in 1984 for his efforts. And whereas Ronald was appointed to the Citizen Advisory Committee, and in 1981 became the organization's chairman, where he traveled throughout Wisconsin to speak with citizens who believed their public rights were not being adequately protected, and advised them on how to advocate for their concerns with the Office of Public Intervener, resulting in several cases that moved public policy significantly towards a conservation ethic, such as local pesticide regulations in the town of Casey. And whereas as a member of the Town of Howard Planning Commission and as a public citizen, Ronald has worked to develop model legislation to manage the industrial silica sand mining industry in western Wisconsin, and advocate for higher standards and monitoring requirements for crystalline silica contamination. Now therefore, Senator Julie Lassa and Representative Katrina Shanklin do hereby honor Professor Ronald Kashishek for his lifelong efforts to inspire greater appreciation and stewardship of Wisconsin's natural resources, and his leadership as a conservationist who uses his appreciation and deep understanding of our natural resources to preserve our proud natural heritage and outdoor heritage and unique wild places.
Well, it is such an honor to be here again. I look forward to this event every year, and I have to say, if there's one event that celebrates our conservation traditions, it is this event. It's so inspiring to be in a room full of people who are our state's heavy lifters. So I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for what you do for our state and our natural resources. So I'm honored to present this citation, Know You by These Presents. Whereas every year, the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inducts a select group of individuals into the Hall of Fame to recognize the important contributions each has made to resource management in the state. And whereas Eugene Rourke has been chosen as a 2015 Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inductee for his lifelong commitment to our state's natural resources and his dedication to teaching others respect and responsibility for the conservation of land and wildlife. And whereas Gene was born in Madison, Wisconsin in 1931 and developed an appreciation for the natural world at an early age. And whereas Gene graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison with a degree in conservation journalism and began his career in 1960 with the Wisconsin Conservation Department, after which he worked as the State Director of Tourism until 1978. And whereas Gene joined the Madison Audubon Society as a teenager in the 1940s and helped found the Wisconsin chapter of the Nature Conservancy in 1960, where he served as a board member and board chairman and an active emeritus trustee. And whereas Gene has been a member of the Natural Heritage Land Trust since 1992 and has held leadership roles as a board member, secretary of the board, and longtime member of the Stewardship Committee, providing advice about selecting conservation projects, getting to know landowners, and always looking to the future. And whereas Gene is one of the founding members of the Invasive Plants Association of Wisconsin, and has chaired the organization's Government Relations Committee, where he provided feedback to decision makers on policy issues relating to invasive plants.